Hello, Westman, and welcome to one more edition of our show, Cafe Diversity. This show is brought to you by Westman Immigrant Services and WCG-TV. My name is Jaime Chinchilla, and I am the cultural facilitator for Westman Immigrant Services. In this show, we take you on a journey every week to meet the diverse people who live in Brandon and the many ways in which they contribute to our communities. We're going to hear about their background, their stories, and the way in which they're participating in many events and programs in the community. Today, I have the pleasure to have with me Calistus Ekenna. Calistus is originally from Nigeria and is here to speak about an interesting research project that he's taking with the University of Manitoba. So how are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thank you for inviting me here.
Well, thanks for coming. So the first question we ask always in this show is, where do you come from? And I said Nigeria, but let's hear a little bit about your background.
Yeah, like you rightly said, I'm from Nigeria. I came to Canada in 2010, September precisely. And I would say I've lived in Canada now for 4 years. And during that period, I've been studying at University of Manitoba, doing my master's program in social work. And yeah.
Well, that's really interesting. And one of the things that we see all the time in the community is that, and I think it's normal with people geographically and socially, politically, it's hard to place yourself in. So I always like to ask about the country itself. The stereotype sometimes that Africa is a country and all that. So where is Nigeria in terms of Africa and the African continent?
Nigeria is located in the western part of Africa. It shares borders with Cameroon, Niger Republic, Benin Republic. These are all French-speaking countries as well, but it sits on the western part of Africa. And Nigeria is also, I would say, the most populous black country in the whole world. The population of Nigeria is about 160 million right now, and and is evenly divided, between Christians and Muslims. So they share like 50-50 in terms of Christians and Muslims. So.
And the first language is English.
The language is English, although we have tribal languages that are up to 200 and something different tribes, but the unifying language is English because we were colonized by the British. So English becomes the official language and the language that we speak both in school and
So I can restate that it's not necessarily the first language, but it is the official language. A lot of people speak other dialects and languages instead of the first language. Okay.
Exactly. Yes.
So what brings you from a heavily populated African country to Canada, and especially to Manitoba?
Okay, it's a long story, but I'll try to cut it, make it as short as possible. I initially did not want to leave Nigeria because I had a very, I would say, very satisfying and rewarding job that I loved so much. I was helping the government to reintegrate victims of those that were being exploited sexually, and some of them were maybe trafficked to some of the European countries or trafficked to some of the northern part of Africa. And I was doing that, and I was seeing some changes, and that I was fulfilled doing that. So, but I met the love of my life, to my wife. We got married. She was born in Canada, and she lived all her life in Canada. And then it got to a point where we had to really be together and start up a family. So it borders on either she's coming back to Nigeria or I'm coming to join her here. So. And she won at the end. I had to leave Nigeria and join her in Canada. And but as soon as I joined her here, I had to upgrade my education, which was to start my master's program. in social work, and so that I'll be able to also practice, what I've been doing back in Nigeria over here. Yeah.
And it's interesting because a lot of times, we have that also stereotype that immigrants are coming here with, fleeing from their countries or looking for better opportunities because of so many different reasons, war, hunger, and all those. But we have lots of people coming from all parts of the world too, in this case Nigeria, just to, as part of a decision to continue their normal life.
Yeah.
But you said you were really happy in Nigeria too.
Yes, like I said, I was doing, the job I was doing back there was something that, trying to affect life, trying to, help those that are highly vulnerable, that were being, exploited by pimps, by traffickers who, knowingly or unknowingly traffic these people to European cities, promising them, all kinds of things, promising them money, promising them, that they will see wealth, kind of thing. And I don't know if you've heard this idea that, money grows in the European countries. So some of these people that have been trafficked believe some of these stories, and they willingly, some of them are accepted to be trafficked. Some not, not aware of what they are going into, but end up being trafficked. So sometimes some of them get repatriated, some of them get rescued, and then they bring them to us, our office, which was the Nigerian government agency that responds to the issue of human trafficking. So I was in the rehabilitation part that tries to, reintegrate these people and try to give them a new hope and new life.
Well, and it sounds to me that, having the experience of this social program in a country like Nigeria or any other country for that matter, it can be really useful in a place like Canada, because we also have a piece of the immigration population that is made out of refugees.
Yes.
So I think in the long term, maybe you can be contributing in that regard too. Now, you're already continuing your social work here in Canada because you're doing an interesting project with the University of Manitoba.
Yes.
And we want to get there too.
Okay.
What is your project?
Okay, the project that I've been involved for close to 2 years now is about a project that has to do with newcomers in Brandon. And it's about getting their experiences. So the project involves giving cameras to some of the newcomers and for them to go into the community to capture their experiences that illustrate how their experiences affect their health and well-being in smaller community like Brandon. So the idea behind it is that we just don't want to look at how the experiences newcomers went through, like in cities like Toronto big or Winnipeg or Montreal. No, we want to look at the smaller communities. And just as we're doing the same thing in Brandon here, the same project is also going on in Kelowna, in British Columbia, and right there in Alberta.
What part of British Columbia?
In Kelowna.
Oh, Kelowna.
Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Okay. So you're looking at how newcomers are settling in these communities regarding well-being and health. Is that?
Yes. How, being a newcomer in a small community like Brandon, what is their experience? What is unique about their own experience? What is so unique about Brandon, about a community like Red Deer, about a community like Kelowna that is different from other bigger cities like Montreal, like Toronto, where we know that traditionally majority of the newcomer, like immigrants, settle there. So that's what we want to understand. And so we've been involved in this project. So many of the newcomers from China, from Ukraine, from El Salvador, from Colombia, from these countries, we kind of recruited some participants from these countries and gave them the camera. So they went into the community and they actually got very, very interesting photographs, and also after they were able to capture some of these photographs, we also had an interview with them, one-on-one and in a group session for them to describe, what actually, what they're trying to capture, in those photographs. And it's been a very interesting exercise, And so, yeah, so this is what we've been on to, doing since more than 2 years now. And we're actually at the, we're towards the ending part of it, so. Yeah.
It's really interesting because you're giving people a camera,
yes,
which means that they're going to be going out and taking pictures, but you give them some directions onto what are they going to photograph, or is it anything that they can photograph?
Well, yeah, before the day we gave, even before we gave them the camera and the day we gave them the camera, we had series of orientation. We had a series of, debate about, for them to describe what they think, they will be capturing. We also gave them some suggestion and ideas of, some of the themes, that they may be, capturing. I wouldn't want to go into wanting to identify some of those things that have been captured, because we're having an exhibition of these pictures in the art gallery of Western Manitoba, just by the library here in Brandon, and so it's going to be an open display for people, community members, to come and view these photographs, and also have the opportunity to read some text that are attached to this photograph, describing them from those participants, point of view, what these photographs are talking about. So the public will have, that opportunity to do that, and beginning from this September 27th, and it will be there for, more than a month. It will be there till November the 8th. So we are really urging people to come out, go view it, and they will also have the opportunity to, also have a feedback, or either have suggestion or feedback on, based on what they've seen, based on what they've read. Yeah.
It sounds very interesting because of two things. I think when you give people a camera, you're also giving them a chance to be subjective, right? Because they're going to be choosing what they're photographing, but a lot of their background will come out as, for example, I might photograph something that it's interesting for me because I didn't see it in my country. Do you get a lot of that?
Yeah, so you're right, Some of them actually highly subjective, I will use that word, highly subjective. And but again, it's personal experience, right? That's the thing we don't want to take away from the whole exercise. We want to individualize it,
Exactly.
based on, each participant that try to capture whatever that experience may be. And they are the authority in terms of describing what that picture is talking about. If I get a photograph, personally, I may not be able to actually say what that picture is talking about, but if you hear from the participant who actually, captured that picture, if that person describes what that picture is talking about, you say, wow, I would never imagine,
Yes.
this is like this.
And that's exactly the second point, because it's really interesting for local people to see what it is that is so special for people coming from other countries, about their community, about their rural community, or about their town that people are settling from all these other places. So I think it's really interesting on both sides. People should really go to the art gallery and not miss this great opportunity. Another question that comes to mind is that when you hear the word research, you imagine a lot of people gathering data from all sorts of surveys and research projects. How do you get data from a photograph? Other than you already mentioned that you make questions to people, but do you take the photographs and actually do something with them, or is it just to exhibit them?
Yeah, for sure.
Project?
Yeah, for sure. It's a research project, and for sure we will pump out so many papers. For sure, we'll write articles. based on this exercise. But when we sat down and looked at some of these pictures, and when we had one-on-one interview with the participants and also group interview, there were so many themes that emerged. So many themes that we also want. That's why we're having this, public display of this photograph for the community to start talking about them. There are so many issues that came up. Things that has to do with the winter. Some of the newcomers, really don't know. Just one of the simple aspects of it is, if you go to the bathroom, you have either hot tub or cold one. Some actually will not know, the difference between the hot one and the cold one. Some of the newcomers will identify issues that has to do with not knowing the difference, how to read the weather, especially during the winter. What's the meaning of 50 shield? What's the meaning of having, minus 50? What kind of clothes would they need to wear? Some of them, there are so many issues that came out from those pictures, so many things that we can base our write-up on, and those can be backed up with, other researches that have been done, in other places as well.
Now, to do a project like this, you have to work with partners, and in the case of Brandon, you already mentioned the Art Gallery of Southwestern Manitoba. What other organizations are working with you in Brandon and other cities?
Well, without Westman Immigrant Services, I don't think this project would have been a success, so far in Brandon. I don't think that would have been possible. From beginning to this moment, Westman Immigrant Services have been very, very, very helpful in terms of even identifying some of those participants that that we are interviewing that actually recruited as participants. In terms of giving us some of the logistics, support. In terms of providing, the space, to meet some of these participants and even have meetings, have different, conversations, and they've been very, very supportive, and some of their staff, even including you, beginning from, when we started this project, you were there, helping out with some of the participants as well. So, and that has been ongoing. We've had other staff that have helped out in different ways. The executive director has been very, very supportive. Mr. Richard, he has been very, very supportive. You've been very supportive. Wendy, the settlement manager, has been very supportive, and Caroline, she's been very amazing as well. So we've had serious support from Westman Immigrant Services, and and I actually want to use this medium to really thank them, for what they've done so far, and the amazing organization. And also the Art Gallery of Western Manitoba has also been very, very, very supportive, including our programs and for this public display in the Art Gallery. We are not paying anything. They've provided us their expertise and their skills, as in going forward with this project. Mm-hmm. And that we say is a very huge support as well.
And again, for the broader community, it's an opportunity to go and see some of the results, if you want to call it that way. I know it's probably too early, but in terms of the photographs.
Exactly.
So it's really interesting, again, not to miss this exhibition. Now, Are you going to compare the data from all the other cities that you've mentioned in the future when the project's coming to an end, or is it going to be just separate to each single community?
Yeah, we'll do, first of all, we'll look at what concerns Brandon and also do a comparative studies with Kelowna, with Red Deer, to see what is similar, what is different, and what is, what brings them together, so we'll be interested in knowing that and comparing that and putting that forward as well. And what we're trying to do also is that at the end we'll be able to, you know, provide some of this information to Westman Immigrant Services because, you know, they are the one really helping the new immigrants here. That will also kind of, I know some of the information they're already aware, but to put it in a document form for them to, could be a reference for them as well. And also for the community, you know, the way I look at this as well is, you know, we are experiencing a lot of, you know, newcomers coming into Brandon. It's a new thing for the community members too, because some of these people that are coming in, they've not lived with them before, they're not used to them. So I also think it's also another way for the community members to, you know these people and try to understand them as well, and so that there will be that, you know, engagement and cooperation as well for both sides.
And that's a very valuable thing if you think about it. Now, you come from Winnipeg, and that's where you live after coming from Nigeria, and you're coming to Brandon to do this research. You were mentioning off cameras that you are pretty much living here for the time of the research. What is your summary, your overview of what branding is in terms of, you know, the well-being and the health, because that's what the research is about, from your expertise and your perspective as a social worker?
Well, it depends on individuals, and it depends on, you know, where one is coming from. And but for me, I like Brandon. Brandon is a very welcoming and very, you know, friendly community that anybody like me, I would love to, you know, settle down here. And it's a city where it's not that big like other, you know, like Toronto and maybe Winnipeg, but, you know, certainly you can also get most of your needs here. You know, I think it's an ideal place to actually raise a family. You know, it's an ideal place because it's still like a community. You know, people still know one another. You know, still, you know, it's a place where you could run to the superstore. The possibility of, you know, see somebody you know, is very high, and also that's kind of way of identification, you know, and also the idea of, you know, for me, you know, like if you go to Winnipeg now, there's so much, you know, traffic everywhere, but Brandon I see it as a place where within 5-10 minutes, you're really where you want to, you're going. So that's for me, it's a very neat thing. And but I know that Brandon is still growing, and you know, much will be happening to Brandon, and it's a series that I look forward to, that, you know, other people should watch out, because, you know, in 5 years' time, Brandon will be expanding. And I heard about the idea of expanding the airport. Once that is done, Brandon is opening up more.
Yes, and that's why research such as yours and all other community work, social work that has been done in the community is so important, because it's a very fast and big transformation for the community. Now, I was thinking that you've mentioned that you have been working with this Spanish-speaking community, the Chinese and the Ukrainian. Is the plan to continue with all the other newcomer communities, or you just plan to have a sample with those communities and then complete the research that way?
No, the plan is because we base our recruitment on the majority, where the majority of the newcomers are coming from. And so, and if you look at the newcomers ratio in Brandon today, you will see that a lot are coming from South America, a lot are coming from, you know, the Asia, particularly China, and a lot of them are also coming from, you know, Ukrainians. So, so that's how we based our, you know, recruitment method on, and not necessarily mean that, you know, that whatever we get from this particular group speaks for other members of the community who are from other lesser number of countries. But we think that, this can generally capture majority of, what the experience of newcomers in a city like Brandon looks like. And but for now, we're going to be stopping on these particular groups that we've identified.
Yeah, and if we think that this project has already a couple of years of having been started, it is a huge project, and I think it's going to be really good.
Yeah.
So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
On working on something that's so important. Now, before we close, I'm going to ask you a more personal question. You said that you are continuing your studies in social work at the U of M.
Yes.
But this project is more a work for you. It's part of your work with the Department of Social Work.
Yes.
What is your main interest as a student of social work? Because you told me about your background and the things that you were working while you were back in Nigeria. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious on what is your interest now for your thesis or your project on your graduate degree.
Okay, my nature, I would say, I love helping people, and like I already shared with you, before I came here, I was already trying to help people back in Nigeria. My interest actually has been on also, the new immigrants, because it's a huge thing for somebody to live a particular environment that they're used to, with family members, around you, with your culture, with everything that defines who you are, and into a different environment, and so my interest has been to identify some of the needs of the newcomers, the immigrants generally, and see how we could help them out, help them to navigate some of the challenges they may face as a result of coming to a new society like Brandon or Canada. And so that has been my interest. And also regarding to what I was doing back in Nigeria, I also discovered when I got here, I was like, okay, here is a very highly organized and developed country that you wouldn't really see any situation where anybody is trafficked for maybe exploitation sexually or otherwise. But I started realizing as well that this crime is also with us here. People are being trafficked, amongst us, for sexual exploitation, for different kind of reasons. So that's another area that I have so much interest in, and especially the internet lure where people, you could be in the comfort of your home and you're already being exploited, without knowing it. So we want to put out that campaign out there as well for parents to be aware of the dangers of those electronics that the children or they carry, how to actually use them safely, and how to make sure that the children are safe, how to make sure that their community are safe.
Wow, so it sounds like a big endeavor, but I think it's going to be good if you can use all that expertise and experience here into Canada. Yeah. We have run out of time, and that's unfortunate because it is so interesting. I wish you the best on your research project, and thanks for coming to explain it to us today.
Thank you so much.
And to tell us about your experience and your personal experiences too as a newcomer. Thanks again for watching. This is Cafe Diversity. My name is Jaime Chinchilla. This show is brought to you by Westman Immigrant Services and WCG-TV. We had the pleasure to have today with us Calistus Ekenna from Nigeria and the University of Manitoba. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. See you next time.